There's a mysterious interstellar object hurtling towards our solar system, exciting scientists across the globe.
The first hints of strangeness came when 3I/Atlas swept into view, its path carrying it past the inner planets in a long, hyperbolic trajectory that marked it as an interstellar visitor. At first, astronomers treated it as they had treated the earlier arrivals, Nun Oumuamua and 2I/Borisov, classifying it as a cometary body that happened to be passing through the solar system before returning to the deep void. Its faint glow, its trailing halo, and its overall behavior seemed consistent enough. Yet the deeper the observations went, the more they diverged from expectation, until the James Webb Space Telescope finally settled the matter with a direct examination that overturned decades of assumption. What Webb revealed was not an icy relic of cosmic wanderings, but something altogether different. Something living. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The very idea that a body as large as Atlas could harbor a living structure within it upended the conceptual framework of planetary science. Astronomers were accustomed to finding ice, dust, organics, and silicate fragments in comets. But Webb's infrared imaging and spectroscopic instruments did not merely register chemical traces that could support life. They identified complex dynamic signatures that corresponded to metabolic processes. Molecular emissions pulsed in rhythmic patterns, unlike anything seen in lifeless celestial matter. The distinct thermal anomalies across the surface and interior layers could not be explained by solar heating alone. Instead, they suggested that portions of the object were self-regulating, maintaining temperature gradients incompatible with inert rock and ice. The conclusion grew difficult to avoid. 3I/Atlas contained something alive. This discovery resonated with the peculiarities already noted in its motion. Even before Webb turned its mirrors toward it, the comet's trajectory raised questions. Atlas did not shed material in the way typical comets do when sublimating under sunlight, and yet it altered its velocity in subtle, non-gravitational ways. When combined with Webb's detection of biosignatures, the evidence painted a portrait of an interstellar traveler that was not merely a comet, but a vessel of life. Whether it was a single organism encased in mineralized shell, a collective colony woven into the fabric of its interior, or an intricate hybrid of biology and geology was unclear. What mattered was the undeniable fact that life existed within it, life born outside the cradle of our sun. The implications stretched across every discipline. Biology, once confined to Earth's biosphere, had been progressively expanded to include potential Martian microbes, possible European oceans, and Titan's exotic chemistry. Yet all of those considerations were hypothetical, unproven speculations about environments that might host life. Here was a confirmation that life not only exists beyond Earth, but has traveled between stars. For the first time, humanity was confronted with direct evidence that life is a galactic phenomenon, not a local aberration. The cosmos had carried a fragment of the living with it across unimaginable distances, and now it drifted past the sun as undeniable proof. There was a profound strangeness in the fact that it was Webb, the silent eye orbiting at L2, that made the revelation possible. The telescope was built to search for the faintest galaxies, to peer into the birth of the cosmos, and yet it turned its unparalleled instruments on a solitary wanderer from another star. Its spectrographs caught the fingerprints of biomolecules in emissions that repeated with uncanny regularity. Not only were there the expected hydrocarbons, but complex proteins, chained polymers, and reaction products that shifted with time, suggesting cycles akin to respiration. Webb could not supply images of writhing organisms, but it revealed a biochemical orchestra playing within the heart of the so-called comet. The classification of Atlas as an interstellar body already linked it to a broader context. Like its predecessors, it did not originate in the Oort cloud or Kuiper belt, but from a distant stellar system altogether. The difference was that Oumuamua and Borisov seemed sterile, silent remnants, while Atlas bore the unmistakable rhythms of life. That contrast raised questions about the conditions of its home system. Did its parent star host a biosphere abundant enough to seed fragments like Atlas? Was it deliberately launched? A biological ark designed to endure interstellar space? Or was it accidental? A shard torn free from a living world by gravitational upheaval, carrying its biological freight across light years until chance delivered it here? Whatever its origin, the fact remained that the life within had survived an interstellar voyage that could have lasted millions of years. This resilience defied expectations about the fragility of organisms. Shielded within mineral shells and layers of frozen compounds, the inner structures had weathered cosmic rays, stellar winds, and the void's cold. The tenacity implied by this survival lent weight to the notion of panspermia, the theory that life spreads from star to star, carried by natural couriers. If 3I/Atlas was proof of such a process, then the entire galaxy could be linked by a network of drifting seeds, each bearing the potential for life to emerge anew wherever conditions allowed. The encounter with Atlas also transformed the human sense of position in the cosmos. For generations, astronomy had depicted a silent universe of stars and lifeless matter, with Earth as a singular exception. Now, that exception dissolved. The revelation that life was embedded within a body from outside the solar system erased the barrier between our biosphere and the wider galaxy. It was no longer a question of whether life exists elsewhere, but of how abundant and varied it might be. The discovery suggested a living galaxy, where biology is as common a feature as starlight and gravity. As the James Webb data circulated among institutions, the scientific community wrestled with interpretation. Some argued for caution, reminding their peers that anomalous chemistry can mimic biology under unusual conditions. Yet the repeatability and coherence of the observed cycles undermined such skepticism. The patterns were not random reactions, but organized, structured, and ongoing. To many, this was not an echo of life, but its presence. The debate shifted from, is it alive, to what kind of life is it? The vocabulary of biology had to stretch to encompass the unknown. Was Atlas home to microbial colonies frozen within layers of ice? Was it an organism on a scale never before imagined, part mineral and part cell, blurring the line between geology and biology? The object's classification fractured under the weight of such questions. Even without definitive answers, the consequences unfolded in the imagination. If Atlas carried life between stars, then it was possible other interstellar objects did the same. Oumuamua's anomalous acceleration, once puzzling, now acquired a new dimension of speculation. Could it too have been alive, but in a dormant or mineralized state beyond Webb's ability to detect? Borisov, with its comet-like activity, might have been another carrier, shedding fragments into the solar system's winds. The thought that Earth had been crossed by such visitors before raised chilling and exhilarating possibilities. Perhaps the seeds of life on Earth itself had come in this manner, born across light years until they found a fertile cradle in the young oceans of a newborn planet. The revelation also deepened humanity's sense of vulnerability and connection. Here was an alien biology drifting into our planetary neighborhood, untouched by earthly evolution, operating on principles unfamiliar, yet recognizable enough to betray their vitality. The very idea of something alive, not from our world or even our star, forced a reconsideration of Earth's biosphere as a local instance of a cosmic pattern. It was not Earth that was exceptional, but the assumption of isolation. The galaxy was alive, and Earth was but one participant in its wider drama. Webb's discovery carried a poetic resonance as well. The telescope, peering silently into the darkness, had always been a machine of questions. How did the first galaxies form? What lies at the edge of the observable universe? Yet in turning its gaze toward a wandering rock, it had found something even more intimate, the confirmation that humanity was not alone in life itself. This alignment of cosmic inquiry and biological revelation tied together the vast scales of existence, from the molecular rhythms inside Atlas to the galactic sweep of its journey. The encounter with Atlas unfolded with a sense of immediacy, because interstellar visitors do not linger. Its trajectory would carry it past the sun and out again, vanishing back into interstellar space. Webb's confirmation of life within it was a fleeting chance, a brief window into a phenomenon that could not be captured or detained. That fleetingness made the data all the more precious. It was a reminder that the universe offers glimpses, not certainties, and that its deepest truths are revealed only in passing. Yet in that passing, humanity gained a new foundation for understanding. Life had been confirmed beyond Earth, not on a neighboring planet or moon, but inside an interstellar traveler. The meaning was profound. It reshaped the story of origins, lending weight to the possibility that life on Earth was not an isolated genesis but part of a cosmic cycle of dissemination. It reframed the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, broadening the scope from technological signals to biological presences. It redefined what it meant to be alive in a universe filled not just with matter, but with the persistence of vitality across the gulfs of space. The confirmation was not a conclusion, but a beginning. 3I/Atlas, the comet that was not a comet, became a messenger not of icy debris, but of existence itself. It carried within it the answer to one of the oldest questions, whether life was unique to Earth, and in so doing, it invited humanity to see itself as part of a living galaxy. It was an encounter that changed everything, not by aftermath or consequence, but in the sheer fact of what Webb had shown, something alive, traveling the stars, now revealed before human eyes. The confirmation that 3I/Atlas contained something living did not simply expand human knowledge. It stretched the imagination into territories once reserved for speculation. To consider a body from interstellar space as a host of life was to stand at the threshold of questions that touched every facet of science, philosophy, and even culture. Webb had revealed the truth of its interior dynamics, but that was only the beginning of understanding. What did it mean for life to exist outside the frameworks familiar to Earth? What forms could it take? What drives and instincts might it follow if indeed it had any? And most provocatively, was it aware of its own existence in some way beyond mere chemistry? When astronomers examined the thermal signatures again, they realized they were not distributed randomly. Zones of activity appeared across Atlas in what could be interpreted as compartments. Each compartment seemed to act semi-independently, maintaining its own rhythm, while at times synchronizing with others in a manner that echoed collective behaviors known from biological swarms or cellular colonies. The pattern was unlike any terrestrial ecosystem, yet the resemblance to cooperative function was impossible to dismiss. To call it a single organism felt reductive. To call it a colony seemed too simple. It was a living architecture, a mosaic of coordinated parts functioning as one, not in the way a whale or a tree does, but in a way that blurred the very boundaries of individuality. The scale of this structure forced thinkers to redefine the concept of life. On Earth, life was tied to cells, DNA, and metabolism. But Atlas suggested that the principles could be broader. Self-sustaining chemical processes that interact, evolve, and adapt might manifest in forms larger than mountains, slower than glaciers, and stranger than imagination had yet conceived. Perhaps the galaxy had always contained such forms, roaming silently between stars, unnoticed until instruments like Webb could capture their presence. In this view, Atlas was not a unique anomaly, but the first of many to be revealed as humanity's perception sharpened. Beyond the biology lay the enigma of origin. If this structure was native to another star system, what conditions had given rise to it? Did it emerge from the surface of a world with oceans, atmosphere, and seasons only to be flung free by gravitational disruptions? Or had it grown directly within the interstellar medium, accreting matter around a living nucleus in the way coral grows around a reef? The former implied a cradle of life much like Earth's, while the latter suggested that the void itself was a viable nursery under the right conditions. Either answer would rewrite cosmic history. If Atlas began on a planet, then other planets must teem with life robust enough to survive interstellar exile. If it began in the void, then life may require no planet at all, just chemistry, time, and the subtle flow of energy between stars. This line of thought led naturally to speculation about intention. Some scholars considered whether Atlas was not simply alive but created. Its structure bore such coherence that one could imagine it as a vessel, constructed deliberately to carry its living components across the gulfs of space. A biological ark, designed not by machines but by evolution itself, engineered through survival to endure cosmic voyages. In this interpretation, Atlas was both passenger and ship, carrying its genetic code to new realms, waiting to encounter stars and systems where it might thrive. If so, then its journey was not random but purposeful on an evolutionary scale, its entire existence dedicated to dispersal and colonization. Others pushed the speculation further still. Could it be not just alive but conscious? Consciousness, as Earth understood it, required networks of neurons, electrical activity in brains, and complex feedback loops. Yet here was a being or colony of such immense scale and duration that its awareness might operate on timescales incomprehensible to humans. What if it perceived centuries as moments, millennia as hours, carrying within itself a sense of journey and destination that human minds could not fathom? If this were true, then Atlas was not just alive. It was a traveler in the truest sense, crossing light years with deliberate awareness of its passage. While the prospect of consciousness remained speculative, the presence of life alone demanded a reevaluation of cosmic silence. For decades, humanity had listened for radio signals, searched for Dyson spheres, and hoped for visible signs of technology. But perhaps the galaxy had always been alive in a quieter way. Instead of beacons of intelligence, it offered bodies like Atlas, living, enduring, and wandering, not communicating through radio but through their very presence. The silence of the cosmos was not emptiness, but a different kind of conversation, one conducted in the language of biology rather than technology. The Webb data also offered a glimpse into the chemical uniqueness of Atlas's life. Its molecular structures bore familiar features, carbon frameworks, bonds that mirrored amino acids, and complex polymers, but they diverged in arrangements not found on Earth. These exotic molecules hinted at a biochemistry evolved in alien environments, adapted to conditions unimaginable on our planet. To study them was to see evolution's creativity unbound from terrestrial constraints. It demonstrated that life was not a singular recipe, but a vast menu, with countless variations shaped by local stars, atmospheres, and histories. In one sense, it was comforting. Life did not require the earthly template to thrive. In another sense, it was unsettling. The differences might be so profound that communication, recognition, and even coexistence would remain forever elusive. What fascinated researchers most was the apparent durability of these alien molecules. Earthly life depends on fragile chains easily broken by radiation, heat, or cold. Yet Atlas had crossed interstellar space, enduring bombardments that should sterilize ordinary biology. Its molecules seemed optimized for endurance, their structures absorbing and dissipating energy, their bonds reinforced against entropy. This endurance was itself a form of intelligence, not conscious perhaps, but evolutionary. Life had found a way to cloak itself against the universe's harshness, to persist when everything conspired against it. Such resilience suggested that once life emerges, it is extraordinarily difficult to extinguish. The philosophical reverberations reach deep. If life can survive the void and seed itself across the stars, then the universe is inherently alive, not metaphorically but literally, filled with organisms, colonies, and structures endlessly moving, merging, and transforming. Humanity's story was not an isolated spark but a continuation of a cosmic pattern, as natural as starlight or gravity. This shifted the existential question from "are we alone?" to "how connected are we to the greater whole?" Earth was not a solitary experiment, but a chapter in a galactic symphony of survival. The cultural imagination embraced this revelation in different ways. For some, Atlas was a messenger, a cosmic envoy carrying proof that life was the rule, not the exception. For others, it was a warning, a reminder that alien biology could exist alongside us, indifferent or perhaps incompatible with our own. Yet even in fear, there was awe. The idea that a being from another star now passed near our sun ignited a sense of unity. Human divisions seemed trivial compared to the presence of such a visitor. Philosophers drew comparisons to the first recognition that Earth revolved around the sun, or that galaxies stretched beyond the Milky Way. Each time, humanity's place shrank in scale but grew in meaning, embedded in a wider cosmos. Scientists, for their part, began to frame new disciplines. Exobiology could no longer be a hypothetical pursuit. It became a science of direct observation. Every telescope, probe, and sensor was recalibrated with the knowledge that life might be encountered not only on planets but within wandering interstellar bodies. New questions arose. Could samples be collected without contamination? Could probes be dispatched to trace Atlas as it left the solar system? These questions carried immense challenges, but the drive to pursue them was undeniable. Humanity had glimpsed life from another star. It would not rest without seeking more. The discovery also reframed the concept of habitability. Previously, astronomers defined habitable zones as narrow belts around stars where liquid water could exist. But Atlas defied this definition. It was alive, yet it did not orbit a star, did not bask in warmth, did not drink liquid oceans. Its life thrived in darkness, fed by chemistry and shielded against the cold. This broadened the definition of habitable environments to include places once dismissed as sterile. Rogue planets drifting in interstellar darkness, icy bodies in outer systems, and even molecular clouds could now be considered potential habitats. Life was more versatile than anyone had imagined. The rhythms detected inside Atlas also inspired thoughts about communication. If its compartments synchronized in cycles, might those cycles be signals? They repeated in measurable patterns, detectable across spectra. Some theorists propose that they were not random at all, but messages of a sort, biological pulses that carried information from one part of the structure to another. If so, then perhaps Atlas was not silent. Perhaps it was speaking, though in a language of chemistry and vibration rather than sound or symbol. To interpret such a language would be daunting, but the mere possibility suggested that interstellar life might not only be observed but eventually understood. The sense of scale was perhaps the most humbling. Atlas dwarfed human time scales. Where we measure lifespans in decades, it measured them in eons. Where we consider journeys across continents monumental, it traversed the gulfs between stars. Its resilience spoke of a persistence alien to human experience, a patience beyond reckoning. To encounter it was to confront a new kind of temporality, life not bound to seasons, centuries, or civilizations, but to cosmic time itself. This forced philosophers to reconsider the meaning of survival and existence. Life was not a fragile spark struggling against extinction, but a fundamental process woven into the universe's fabric. In that sense, Atlas became a mirror. It reflected humanity's desire to endure, to explore, to transcend boundaries. Just as it carried its biology across the void, humanity dreamed of carrying its consciousness across space. The parallel was not lost. Atlas demonstrated that such journeys were possible, not for machines alone, but for living systems. It became a symbol of what life could achieve, given time and resilience. Its presence suggested that the barriers of distance and hostility could be overcome, not through force, but through adaptation and persistence. The possibility that Earth's own life might have similar origins transformed our understanding of ourselves. If panspermia was true, then Earth's biosphere might trace its ancestry to objects like Atlas. In that case, we were not discovering an alien for the first time, but encountering a distant relative, a fellow branch on a galactic tree of life. This kinship carried a strange intimacy. The molecules dancing within Atlas's compartments might be cousins to our own, diverged across eons but united by common cosmic ancestry. Humanity itself could be interstellar, born of seeds that traveled between stars long before our sun was born. Even the visual imagination of Atlas gained power. No longer was it just a faint smudge of light in telescopes. It was a cradle of alien biology, a living ark gliding silently through space. To picture it was to see not just a rock and ice conglomerate, but a cathedral of life, a moving sanctuary carrying its passengers between suns. The imagery resonated deeply, fusing the scientific with the poetic. Artists, storytellers, and dreamers all seized upon its mystery, weaving it into visions of a galaxy alive with wandering giants, each carrying its own secret world. The magnitude of Webb's revelation continued to expand outward. The telescope had not only observed galaxies billions of light years away, but had illuminated life itself within our celestial neighborhood. It had demonstrated that life was not hidden in unreachable distances, but could brush against us in passing, riding on the backs of interstellar travelers. This was a reminder that the extraordinary often arrives quietly, disguised as the ordinary, until perception sharpens enough to reveal its true nature. As Atlas moved on, fading back into the interstellar dark, the imprint it left remained indelible. Humanity had seen life beyond Earth, not as conjecture, but as fact. That fact carried no aftermath in itself. It did not alter societies overnight or rewrite political boundaries, but it deepened the collective sense of existence. The cosmos was no longer silent. It was alive. And in recognizing that aliveness, humanity recognized something of itself, reflected back across the void by a visitor that was never a comet, but something far greater. When the James Webb Space Telescope revealed that 3I/Atlas was not a lifeless comet but a host of something living, a cascade of questions emerged that went far beyond science. If such a body could cross into our solar system carrying alien biology, then the notion of interstellar ecosystems became plausible. The cosmos was no longer a barren expanse populated only by stars, planets, and drifting debris. It became a biological continuum, one where evolution could play out not just on worlds but within the structures of spacefaring organisms themselves. The very idea shifted the boundaries of where life could exist and how it might thrive. One of the most compelling considerations was the role of interstellar space as an environment rather than a void. For centuries, humans had treated the regions between stars as emptiness, harsh, cold, and hostile to anything resembling life. Atlas undermined that presumption. It suggested that interstellar space might support forms of biology adapted to its conditions. Energy sources, though scarce, were not absent. Cosmic rays, background radiation, and the faint warmth of distant stars could be harnessed if structures evolved with sufficient efficiency. Just as deep-sea organisms on Earth thrive around hydrothermal vents without sunlight, life in the void might exploit energy gradients invisible to us. Atlas was the first concrete evidence that such adaptation was possible. This revelation also recast the idea of migration across cosmic scales. On Earth, migration is a matter of instinct, survival, and reproduction. Birds cross continents, whales navigate oceans. Atlas represented that principle extended to interstellar proportions. Its journey was not simply a drift, but potentially a form of biological expansion, the spread of life into new regions. Migration, then, was not just terrestrial or planetary, it was galactic. The stars themselves were not barriers, but stepping stones for life that could endure the gulfs between them. The galaxy became an ecosystem on a scale unimaginable before Webb's discovery. Another dimension of the find lay in the question of time. If Atlas had traveled for millions of years, perhaps billions, then it had existed through epochs in which stars lived and died. This longevity suggested that life could persist across cosmic cycles. While civilizations might rise and fall on planetary surfaces, interstellar organisms could drift unchanged, outlasting empires and epochs alike. In this sense, they were carriers of continuity. They bore the persistence of biology not in fleeting generations, but in an unbroken chain spanning eras. This durability made them a kind of memory of the galaxy, holding within their biochemistry the stories of ancient stars and forgotten systems. The patterns Webb identified within Atlas also raised intriguing possibilities about complexity. If the synchronized rhythms of compartments represented cooperative activity, then it was possible that these structures evolved in ways that paralleled intelligence. Intelligence on Earth emerged from networks of neurons communicating across specialized regions. If Atlas was a vast, living mosaic with compartments linked by biochemical signals, then it might have developed coordination and decision-making processes on scales beyond human comprehension. Such intelligence would not resemble speech, technology, or culture, but it could manifest in the ability to navigate space, regulate internal processes, and respond to changing environments. Intelligence might not be unique to nervous systems, but an emergent property of any sufficiently interconnected living architecture. This challenged the anthropocentric assumption that intelligence requires brains. Instead, it suggested that intelligence might be distributed, diffuse, and collective. Humanity had glimpsed this principle in ant colonies, fungal networks, and coral reefs, but Atlas magnified it to cosmic dimensions. Perhaps intelligence was not an anomaly, but a recurring feature of large-scale living systems. The galaxy could therefore contain countless forms of intelligence hidden within structures humanity had long dismissed as inert. The existence of Atlas also complicated the definition of an ecosystem. Earth's ecosystems rely on interconnected food webs, cycles of energy and matter, and the balance between producers and consumers. Yet Atlas seemed to sustain itself in isolation, without a surrounding biosphere. Its ecosystem was internal, self-contained, and self-renewing. This suggested that ecosystems did not require planets, oceans, or atmospheres. They could exist within singular bodies, sealed against the outside, yet still thriving. Such ecosystems might function like miniature worlds, complete with their own cycles, niches, and hierarchies. If Atlas was an example, then the universe might be populated with countless self-sustaining biospheres adrift between stars. Speculation soon turned to diversity. If one interstellar body carried life, then others might as well. Each would represent a unique evolutionary pathway shaped by its origin and its journey. Our ancestry linked to travelers like Atlas. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on 3i/Atlas not being a comet? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.